Max had always been a remarkable dog, even in his youth. As a canine officer, he had faced situations most people would never imagine. He had tracked criminals through dark alleys, located missing children, and even helped officers uncover hidden dangers that could have cost lives. But those days were behind him now. Retired from active service, Max lived a quiet life with Officer Riley, his longtime partner and trainer. They had grown close over the years, forming a bond that was stronger than many human friendships. Max no longer wore his police vest or carried out rigorous training exercises, but his instincts, honed over countless missions, remained sharper than ever. The town where they lived was small and peaceful, surrounded by green parks, quiet streets, and families who often waved at them during their morning walks. Max had grown used to these slow, calm days. He enjoyed lounging in the sun, chasing the occasional squirrel, or simply walking beside Riley while enjoying the gentle rhythm of their lives. But one day, everything changed. The sky had begun to darken early in the afternoon. Clouds thickened, turning a deep gray that swallowed the sunlight. Max, who was used to sensing weather changes long before anyone else noticed them, stiffened slightly. His ears perked up and he sniffed the air, catching scents that the rain had not yet washed away. Riley noticed Max's sudden alertness and frowned. "Easy there, boy. It's just a little rain," he said, tugging lightly on the leash. But Max was not so easily convinced. He started moving faster, pulling gently toward a direction that Riley did not recognize. A heavy rain began to fall, washing over the streets in torrents. People hurried to their cars, umbrellas popping open like mushrooms against the gray sky. Shops were closing their doors, and children running home were drenched within minutes. Yet Max pressed forward, his paws splashing in the puddles, his eyes fixed on something only he could sense. Riley ran to keep up, both concerned and amazed at the dog's determination. They rounded a corner, and Riley noticed a narrow alleyway that he had rarely paid attention to before. Max dashed into it without hesitation. Riley called after him, "Max! Wait, what is it?" But Max did not stop. His nose was low to the ground, and his movements were precise, purposeful. It was as though some invisible force was guiding him toward something urgent, something important. As Riley entered the alley, the sound of soft, faint crying reached his ears. He stopped for a moment, straining to listen. It was almost drowned out by the pounding rain, yet the sound tugged at something deep within him, a sense of fear, urgency, and the instinct to protect. He followed Max further down the alley, and then he saw it. A small cardboard box, wet and flattened by the rain, lay in the corner. Inside, barely visible beneath the soggy layers, was a tiny baby. The child was shivering, wrapped in nothing but a thin blanket that had done little to protect it from the storm. Riley's heart pounded, and he felt a wave of shock and fear. Who could have left a baby out in such terrible weather? How long had the child been there? And most importantly, was the baby going to survive the cold and rain? Max, sensing Riley's distress, barked softly and nudged the baby gently with his nose. His brown eyes, usually calm and disciplined, were filled with urgency. He seemed to say, "Hurry, help is needed now." Riley's hands trembled as he carefully lifted the baby from the box, holding the tiny, fragile body close to his chest. The child's cries were weak, but they were a sign that life still remained, that there was hope. Max stayed close, moving protectively around Riley and the baby, his presence both reassuring and commanding. Riley didn't think twice. He knew the nearest veterinary clinic was a few blocks away, and although he was not a doctor, he hoped that Dr. Harper, the local vet, could provide immediate help. He wrapped the baby in his jacket, holding it as close to him as possible to keep it warm. Max, understanding the urgency, ran ahead, guiding Riley through the flooded streets with unmatched precision. Every step mattered. Every second was critical. The streets were almost deserted. People had retreated to the safety of their homes or vehicles, leaving only occasional glimpses of umbrellas or startled pedestrians. Some watched with curiosity as a soaked officer carried a baby, while a large, determined dog led the way, splashing through puddles with a focused intensity that was almost heroic. Riley could feel the child's small body trembling against his chest. He whispered softly, trying to soothe the baby. "It's okay, little one. You're safe now. We'll get you help." The alleyways twisted and turned, some paths unfamiliar even to Riley, yet Max navigated them with remarkable skill. It was as if the dog had an inner compass that would not allow them to stray. Riley marveled at Max's intelligence. realizing that the years of training, service, and experience were showing in one of the most critical moments of their lives. Max was no longer just a retired K9. In that storm, he was a guardian, a guide, and perhaps even a savior. As they approached the veterinary clinic, Riley's anxiety increased. The rain beat down harder, the wind whistled through the streets, and the clinic's lights were dimmed against the stormy backdrop. He ran up the steps, Max close behind, and pounded on the door. Dr. Harper, hearing the commotion, opened it immediately. Her eyes widened at the sight before her. A soaked officer holding a baby, a large dog standing calmly but alert by their side, and the storm raging outside. Without wasting a second, Dr. Harper ushered them inside. Towels and blankets were quickly retrieved, and Riley gently placed the baby on a warm, dry surface. Max sat beside the child, his gaze unwavering, his presence radiating calmness and protection. The baby's soft cries began to subside slightly as the warmth from the towels started to reach its tiny body. Riley breathed a sigh of relief, though the tension was far from over. Dr. Harper immediately began examining the child, her hands gentle but thorough. She checked for signs of injury, dehydration, and hypothermia. She noted the baby's weak breathing and the subtle movements that indicated vulnerability. Max, as if understanding the seriousness of the situation, rested his head near the baby, occasionally nudging it slightly, offering comfort and warmth in his own way. Riley could hardly believe what had just happened. The baby, left alone in the pouring rain, had been discovered by a dog who had once been trained to save lives. The thought that Max, even in retirement, could find someone in need and act with such urgency filled Riley with awe and gratitude. The bond they shared, formed over years of shared challenges and experiences, had never been more meaningful. Max had not only guided Riley to the baby, but had ensured that they arrived in time for help to be given. The storm outside continued to rage, but inside the clinic, there was a sense of hope. The baby was alive, safe, and in capable hands. Max remained vigilant, a silent protector who had once again proven the extraordinary abilities and instincts of a canine dog. Riley whispered softly to Max, "You did it, boy. You saved a life today." Max wagged his tail slightly as if acknowledging the praise, but focused still on the small, fragile life before him. In that moment, Riley understood something profound. Max was more than a retired police dog. He was a hero, a guardian whose instincts transcended training, a friend whose loyalty could never be measured. And the baby, unaware of the storm, the danger, and the life-saving journey it had just experienced, had already been given a chance at life that would not have existed without the extraordinary actions of a dog who refused to ignore a faint cry in the rain. The events of that day would be remembered, not just for the storm, the fear or the urgency, but for the bravery, intelligence, and compassion of a retired canine who reminded everyone that heroism could take many forms, and that sometimes the smallest act of recognition, the smallest decision to act, could change a life forever. Riley carefully stepped into the veterinary clinic, the baby cradled against his chest and Max following closely behind, his paws slipping slightly on the wet floor, but his determination unwavering. Dr. Harper, the vet on duty that evening, looked up from her paperwork and immediately froze, her eyes widening in shock. She had seen many emergencies in her career, from injured pets to rescued animals, but nothing could have prepared her for this scene. A soaked officer holding a tiny, shivering baby, while a large, focused dog sat patiently nearby, as if guarding them both against the storm outside. "Riley, what on earth happened?" Dr. Harper exclaimed, moving quickly to help. Riley, still out of breath from running through the rain, barely had time to respond. "Max, he found the baby." "In the alley." "In the rain? We had to bring it here, fast." His words came out in hurried fragments, but Dr. Harper understood immediately the urgency of the situation. She gestured for him to lay the baby on a table while she grabbed blankets and warm towels. Max, sensing that the child was finally safe, remained close, his body almost shielding the baby from any perceived threat. His ears twitched and his eyes scanned the room, but he never left the small figure that had in many ways become his responsibility. Riley gently placed the baby on a padded examination table, wrapping it in dry blankets to help it warm up. The child's tiny hands were curled into fists, shivering uncontrollably, and the faint sound of crying barely broke through the tension that filled the clinic. Dr. Harper examined the baby carefully, her hands steady but gentle. She checked for any injuries, looking for bruises, cuts, or marks that might indicate trauma. The baby's skin was pale and cold from the rain, and its lips had a slight bluish tint, a sign of hypothermia. Harper's heart tightened. Exposure to the storm, even for a short period, could be extremely dangerous for an infant. She adjusted the blankets, wrapping the baby more securely and placing a heating pad underneath to bring some warmth to its fragile body. Riley stood close, watching anxiously. Max nudged the baby gently with his nose, almost as if to reassure it. The dog's instincts, honed through years of canine service, seemed to extend now to comforting and protecting the helpless child. Riley could not help but marvel at Max. Even in retirement, without his usual police duties or commands, the dog had displayed extraordinary intelligence and dedication. Max had recognized danger, followed his instincts, and led Riley to the baby in time for help to arrive. Without him, the outcome could have been much worse. The clinic was small but well-equipped. Harper quickly took the baby's temperature and listened to its heartbeat. She could hear the faint rhythm, irregular but alive. Relief and concern mixed in her chest. "The baby is alive," she said softly, more to herself than to anyone else. "But it's in serious condition. We need to act carefully and quickly." She called for additional blankets and a bottle of warm, sterile water. As she worked, Riley explained the situation in more detail. "I was just walking, Max, and the storm hit suddenly," Riley said, still catching his breath. Max ran ahead. "I followed him, and that's when we heard it, the baby's cries. I can't believe he found it. He just knew something was wrong. I've worked with him for years, but even I'm amazed at how he acted." Dr. Harper nodded, glancing at Max, who sat quietly beside the table, eyes never leaving the baby. "Dogs like Max have instincts that are sometimes more precise than our own senses. He must have heard or smelled something we couldn't, and he knew it needed help." She gently adjusted the blanket around the baby's tiny frame. "It's incredible that he led you here. He may have saved this baby's life." The baby's cries began to weaken, almost exhausted from the ordeal, but its small chest rose and fell steadily. Dr. Harper noticed a faint mark on the wrist, almost like a tiny scar or birthmark. It was subtle, easily overlooked, but Harper's experience told her that it could indicate something more serious, a congenital issue or medical condition that had gone unnoticed. She felt a chill run down her spine, realizing that this child's struggles might extend far beyond the rain-soaked alley. Max nudged the baby again, and Riley noticed the dog's unusual focus. He's acting like he knows something's wrong," Riley said softly, almost in awe. Harper studied the dog and the baby together, realizing that Max's attention might not just be about protection, it could also be sensing the child's health distress. She had heard of dogs reacting to illness in humans, sometimes before symptoms were noticeable, but this was extraordinary. Max had not only found the baby, but he might have recognized that the child was in danger in more ways than one. Riley watched as Dr. Harper worked, her hands moving quickly to stabilize the baby. She cleaned the child's face, checked the ears, eyes, and mouth, and monitored breathing. "The baby is severely dehydrated," she said, her voice calm but serious. "It needs fluids, warmth, and immediate care. There's also a chance of a congenital heart issue. I'll need to run quick tests, but I'm concerned about its condition." The urgency of the situation pressed down on the small clinic, contrasting sharply with the rain pounding outside. Riley felt a wave of helplessness despite being an experienced officer. He had saved people countless times, yet holding a baby in his arms, vulnerable and tiny, made him feel completely powerless. Max, however, exuded calm determination. The dog seemed to sense the baby's fragility and stayed close, his presence offering comfort and reassurance that words could not. Dr. Harper carefully drew a small amount of blood and prepared a rapid test to check for any underlying medical issues. As she worked, she thought about the circumstances that had brought the baby here. Who could have left such a young child in the rain? Was it abandonment, or had something more tragic occurred? Questions raced through her mind, but there was no time to dwell on them. The priority was the child's immediate safety. Max, meanwhile, remained a silent guardian. His head was lowered near the baby, and every so often he gave a soft, low whine, an almost human-like sound of concern. Riley smiled faintly through his worry, feeling proud of his loyal companion. "You did it, Max," he whispered. You saved a life today. Max looked up at him briefly, eyes full of quiet understanding, then returned his gaze to the baby, as if confirming that his work was not done until the child was completely safe. Minutes passed, each one feeling like an eternity, as Dr. Harper monitored the baby's condition. The irregular heartbeat and pale skin were signs of serious distress, but with the blankets, warmth, and immediate care, the child began to stabilize slightly. The crying softened to occasional whimpers, and the small hands stopped trembling as much. Harper adjusted the heat source and held the baby's tiny wrist gently, feeling the faint pulse that confirmed life still flowed within this small body. Riley stood beside her, glancing at Max. "I've never seen him like this," he said quietly. "Even after all these years, he's never been more alert, more focused. He knew something was wrong before I did. I don't know what I'd do without him." Harper nodded, understanding completely. Canines like Max were trained for life and death situations, but this went beyond training. It was instinct, intelligence, and an unwavering sense of responsibility all working together. Finally, after ensuring that the baby was as warm and stable as possible, Dr. Harper made a decision. "We need to get this child to a hospital immediately," she said. "There may be a heart issue and it needs expert care. We've stabilized it for now, but the next step is critical." Riley nodded, knowing she was right. Max wagged his tail slightly, sensing that they were moving toward further help, and stayed close as they prepared to transport the baby safely. In that moment, Riley reflected on the storm, the alley, and the life-saving instincts of his loyal companion. Max had not only found the baby, but he had guided Riley through danger, urgency, and uncertainty, ensuring that the child arrived at a place of care. The retired canine had acted heroically, instinctively, and with compassion beyond what many humans could manage. Dr. Harper gently placed the baby into a secure carrier for transport, while Max walked beside them, vigilant as ever. Riley glanced down at the dog and whispered, "You're the bravest dog I've ever known. Max, you've saved this baby's life today, and nothing can change that." Max gave a soft, approving bark, his tail wagging slightly, and continued his careful watch as they prepared to leave the clinic for the hospital. That evening, the storm continued to rage outside, but inside the small clinic, there was hope, courage, and an unspoken bond. A bond between a dog, his human partner, and a tiny baby whose life had been spared by bravery, instinct, and unwavering loyalty. Max had proven once again that heroes could come in all shapes and sizes, even in the form of a retired K9, running through the rain to save a life. Once the baby was carefully secured in the carrier, Riley, Max, and Dr. Harper rushed toward the hospital. The rain had not let up, and the streets were slick and slippery, making every step more tense. Riley held the carrier tightly, checking the baby frequently while Dr. Harper guided him through the safest route. Max ran alongside them, alert, ears perked, eyes scanning the surroundings as if he were protecting a precious treasure. The dog had found the baby and had not left its side since, instinctively knowing that his role was far from over. The hospital's neonatal unit was just a few blocks away, but the journey felt longer than it was. Each puddle, each flash of lightning, reminded Riley of the fragility of the child in his arms. He whispered softly to the baby, trying to calm it despite the storm outside. "You're safe now, little one. We'll get you help, I promise." Max's presence was comforting. The dog's steady pace and unwavering vigilance made Riley feel less alone in this emergency. The K9's instincts were precise, ensuring that they avoided any unnecessary risks on the slippery roads. When they finally arrived at the hospital, the emergency doors opened just in time. Nurses and doctors were ready to receive them, understanding immediately from Dr. Harper's hurried explanation that this was a critical situation. The baby was immediately taken into the neonatal care unit, placed under a warm, controlled environment where monitors could track its heart rate, breathing, and temperature. Riley and Dr. Harper followed closely, Max sitting quietly outside the unit watching, waiting, and refusing to leave his post. Dr. Harper had already warned the hospital staff about the possibility of a congenital heart condition. As the team began a thorough examination, she observed Max's behavior carefully. The dog seemed unusually focused on the baby's movements, almost as if he could sense changes in the child's condition that were invisible to the human eye. The notion wasn't surprising to Harper. She had heard stories of dogs sensing illness or danger in humans, but seeing it firsthand, especially in a retired K9, was remarkable. Max had gone beyond detection. He had become a guardian in every sense of the word. The tests began immediately. Monitors beeped steadily as doctors checked vital signs. The baby's heart rate was weak and irregular, confirming Harper's concerns. The tiny body shivered slightly despite the heated environment, a sign that the stress from the storm and exposure had been severe. Dehydration was evident, and the medical team administered fluids carefully to bring the baby's levels back to normal. Harper guided the doctors through what she had observed at the clinic: the baby's pale skin, weak pulse, and subtle marks that could indicate a deeper medical issue. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the soft beeping of monitors and the occasional quiet instruction from a nurse. Riley sat nearby, holding Max's leash, both keeping a watchful eye on the child. Max lay quietly beside them, his head resting near the carrier, eyes flicking constantly between Riley and the baby. The K9's calm yet vigilant presence seemed to influence the mood in the room. Everyone could sense the extraordinary bond between man, dog, and child, a connection forged by instinct, loyalty, and courage. Dr. Harper finally reviewed the results from the rapid tests. Her expression changed from focus to a mix of shock and concern. The baby had a congenital heart defect that, if left untreated, could have been fatal in the coming weeks or even days. The defect had gone unnoticed until now, hidden beneath the baby's fragile appearance and tiny size. The fact that the child had survived exposure to the storm was a miracle in itself. Harper realized that the combination of Max's sharp instincts and Riley's quick action had likely saved the baby's life. Without their intervention, the outcome could have been tragically different. Riley looked down at Max and whispered, "You knew, didn't you, boy? You knew something was wrong and you didn't wait for anyone else to notice. You just acted." Max wagged his tail slightly, almost in acknowledgement, but remained focused on the baby. Harper observed this interaction with quiet awe. She had trained many K9s and worked with service animals, but the intelligence, intuition, and protective instincts displayed by Max were extraordinary. The dog had not only saved a life, but had done so in a way that reflected years of experience, training, and unwavering loyalty. The hospital staff prepared for immediate intervention. Pediatric cardiologists were called to evaluate the baby's heart and determine the best course of treatment. Harper explained everything she had observed: the dehydration, the weak pulse, the mark on the wrist, and Max's unusual attentiveness. The doctors were impressed by the detailed observations, realizing that every small piece of information could help in the treatment plan. Max's role, though silent, had been critical. As preparations continued, Riley and Harper reflected on how unlikely the entire sequence of events had been. The storm, the deserted streets, the timing, all factors that could have resulted in disaster, had instead aligned to create a moment where life and chance met with extraordinary loyalty. Max's actions, which seemed almost instinctual, had become the determining factor in the baby's survival. The realization filled the room with a mixture of gratitude and amazement. The baby's tiny fingers curled around the blanket, a small but resilient sign of life. Each beat of the heart, each breath reminded everyone present of the fragility of the moment and the importance of the actions that had led them there. Riley quietly patted Max on the head. "You've done more than anyone could have imagined, Max. You're a hero, and this baby owes you a life." Max simply rested his head, eyes soft but alert, as if acknowledging the praise but silently insisting that his duty was not complete until the child was fully safe. The cardiologists and medical team worked together, performing further tests to confirm the heart defect and planning for any immediate interventions that might be necessary. Harper stayed close, her mind still racing with thoughts of how the child had ended up alone in the storm. Questions remained unanswered. Who had left the baby? How long had it been exposed to the rain before Max found it? And most importantly, how could the child receive the care and protection it deserved moving forward? Max remained by the baby's side throughout the night. His unwavering vigilance seemed to calm the infant, even in the strange, bright environment of the hospital. Riley watched him and felt a deep sense of pride and awe. The dog had once been a hero on the streets, saving lives as part of his duty. But in retirement, he had proven that heroism was not bound by age, status, or circumstance. Max had chosen to act, guided purely by instinct and compassion, and had changed a life forever. By the early morning hours, the baby's condition had stabilized slightly. The dehydration had improved with fluids, the warmth had helped to raise the body temperature, and the heartbeat, though still irregular, had strengthened enough for the doctors to consider the next steps. Harper allowed herself a small sigh of relief but remained cautious. She knew the road ahead for the baby would involve careful monitoring, specialized treatment, and possibly surgery to correct the heart defect. Yet in that moment, hope outweighed fear, and the miracle of the baby's survival became tangible. Riley and Max sat together, watching the child sleep peacefully, surrounded by monitors and medical equipment. The storm had passed outside, leaving behind a quiet, wet morning filled with reflection and gratitude. Harper approached them, her eyes soft but filled with amazement. "I still can't believe it," she said quietly. "Without Max, we might not even be here talking about a miracle. The timing, his instincts, it's incredible. He saved this baby's life." Riley nodded, tears forming in his eyes. "He's more than a dog. He's family, and today he's a hero in every sense of the word." As the baby rested, Riley thought about the events that had brought them here: the storm, the deserted streets, Max's determination, and the sudden discovery of a life in danger. He realized that sometimes heroism comes in unexpected forms, and sometimes it appears when the world seems quiet and ordinary. Max had been trained for bravery, but the loyalty, intuition, and care he displayed went beyond training. He had acted not just as a police dog, but as a guardian, a protector, and a friend. The hospital staff continued to monitor the baby closely, but the immediate danger had passed. Harper documented the details, emphasizing the importance of Max's discovery and the quick response that had followed. The story of the retired K9, the storm, and the abandoned baby would become a testament to the extraordinary bonds between humans and animals, and to the unexpected ways in which heroism can manifest. That night, as Riley and Max returned home after ensuring the baby was in expert hands, the officer reflected on the magnitude of what had occurred. Max, now resting quietly beside him, had once again shown the depth of his instincts, courage, and compassion. The retired K9 had found a life in peril and had acted decisively, saving a baby from danger and giving it a chance at a future. It was a reminder that even in the quietest moments, the extraordinary could happen, guided by loyalty, love, and the instincts of a devoted companion. The next morning, the storm had passed, leaving the streets glistening from the rain and the early sun filtering through the clouds. The town was slowly waking up, unaware of the extraordinary events that had unfolded just hours earlier. But inside the hospital, the story of the baby, Riley, and Max, the retired K9 who had saved a life, was spreading quickly. News of the remarkable discovery had reached the hospital staff, who were still in awe of the dog's instincts and the timely actions that had likely prevented a tragedy. The baby, now resting peacefully in the neonatal unit, had begun to show signs of improvement. The initial dehydration had been addressed with carefully administered fluids, and the warmth of the incubator helped stabilize the fragile body. The irregular heartbeat, although still present, was less alarming as the medical team monitored it closely. Dr. Harper remained at the hospital, checking on the baby and explaining its condition to the attending doctors. She knew that without immediate intervention, the baby might not have survived the night, and the thought filled her with gratitude toward both Riley and Max. Word of the incident quickly spread throughout the town. Social media posts began to appear, showing images of Max sitting patiently beside the baby at the clinic, his attentive gaze captured in photographs that quickly went viral. People were amazed by the story of a retired K9 dog who had found a baby in the rain, guided his human companion through stormy streets, and ensured that the child received immediate care. The posts highlighted not just the danger the baby had faced, but also the extraordinary courage and intelligence of Max. Comments poured in, praising the dog and expressing relief that the baby was safe. Riley watched the online coverage with a mixture of pride and disbelief. He had always known that Max was special, but seeing the public's reaction reminded him just how extraordinary his companion truly was. Max had been trained for heroism, but even Riley had not anticipated the level of intuition and awareness the dog displayed in that critical moment. Max had recognized danger, acted without hesitation, and guided Riley to ensure the baby's safety, a series of actions that no ordinary dog could have performed. The hospital staff began to coordinate with local authorities to determine how the baby had ended up alone in the storm. Social workers, police officers, and child protection agencies were involved, working together to ensure the child's safety and future well-being. Questions remained. Had the baby been abandoned or had something more tragic occurred? Who could have left such a small, helpless infant in a cardboard box in the middle of a storm? The authorities promised to investigate thoroughly, but in the meantime, the focus remained on the child's recovery. Meanwhile, Max remained a constant presence, his eyes never leaving the baby. He sat quietly outside the incubator, occasionally nudging the blanket or letting out a soft whine when the infant stirred. His loyalty and vigilance were remarkable, and even the hospital staff were impressed by the canine's behavior. They had seen many service and therapy animals, but Max's actions went far beyond training. He had not only guided Riley to the baby, but had stayed alert, protective, and comforting throughout the entire night. His instincts had ensured that the child received the care it needed at the critical moment. Dr. Harper took a moment to reflect on the events. She had been a veterinarian for years, dealing with emergencies and critical cases, but this was different. The combination of timing, intuition, and courage had created a life-saving moment that none of them would ever forget. Harper documented every detail of the incident: the discovery in the alley, the storm, Max's behavior, and the baby's condition upon arrival at the clinic. She knew that this story would serve as a powerful reminder of the bond between humans and animals, and the extraordinary ways in which animals could impact lives. As the day progressed, the baby continued to show improvement. Its tiny hands, once curled tightly from fear and cold, relaxed slightly under the warmth of the blankets. The color of the skin, previously pale and tinged with blue, began to show signs of healthy pinkness. Every small change was a victory, and every breath taken by the child was a reassurance that the night of danger was behind them. Harper watched with satisfaction, knowing that the immediate threat had passed, thanks to Max's swift action and Riley's quick response. Outside the hospital, the community began to rally around the story. Local news reporters arrived to cover the miraculous events, interviewing staff, Riley, and anyone involved. Social media continued to buzz, with people expressing admiration for Max and the incredible timing that had allowed a baby to be saved. Donations of baby supplies, blankets, and heartfelt messages of support poured in from people who had been moved by the story. The narrative of courage, loyalty, and heroism struck a chord with everyone who heard it, reminding them of the unexpected ways in which bravery could appear. Riley found himself reflecting on the bond he shared with Max. The dog had been his partner for years, and together they had faced danger countless times. But this moment in which Max had gone beyond training, beyond duty, and acted purely on instinct and compassion was unlike anything Riley had experienced. Max had become more than a companion. He had become a hero whose actions had directly saved a life. The realization filled Riley with pride, gratitude, and a deep emotional connection to the dog who had never failed him. Dr. Harper continued her careful observations, checking the baby's vital signs and documenting each improvement. The pediatric team worked closely with her, preparing for further evaluations and ensuring that the infant received the best possible care. While questions about the child's past remained unanswered, there was no doubt that the immediate crisis had passed. The baby had survived, thanks to a combination of quick thinking, timely intervention, and Max's extraordinary instincts. The story of the baby and Max began to inspire others in the community. Local schools invited Dr. Harper and Riley to speak about the events, sharing the lessons of awareness, compassion, and the unique bond between humans and animals. The narrative emphasized the importance of paying attention to surroundings, acting with courage in the face of uncertainty, and recognizing the extraordinary instincts that animals could possess. Max became a symbol of heroism, demonstrating that bravery was not limited by age, status, or circumstance. As the days passed, the baby's condition continued to improve. The initial dehydration was resolved, and the heart condition, though still requiring ongoing monitoring, was stabilized. Harper and the medical team worked together to ensure that every need was met, from nutrition and warmth to medical care and comfort. Max remained close, his presence a calming influence on everyone in the hospital. The dog's patience and vigilance were remarkable, and even the hospital staff marveled at his unwavering dedication. Riley watched the baby with a mixture of awe and relief. He had known that Max was special, but seeing the impact of the dog's actions firsthand was overwhelming. Max had discovered the baby in the storm, guided Riley through danger, and ensured that the child received immediate care. The retired canine had acted with courage, intelligence, and loyalty that went beyond training, leaving a lasting impression on everyone who witnessed the events. Community members continued to visit the hospital, bringing gifts, supplies, and messages of support. They shared their admiration for Max, celebrating the dog's bravery and the remarkable outcome. The story of the retired canine and the baby became a symbol of hope, courage, and the power of instinctual heroism. People spoke of it in schools, community centers, and online forums, highlighting the incredible bond between humans and animals and the extraordinary ways in which heroism could manifest. Riley and Dr. Harper continued to monitor the baby's progress, ensuring that the child's needs were met and that the recovery remained on track. Max stayed by their side, his attentive eyes never leaving the baby for long. His role as a protector and guardian had not ended with the discovery. It continued as long as the baby remained vulnerable. The dog's instincts, courage, and loyalty had created a lasting impact, providing safety, comfort, and hope to a life that had begun under tragic circumstances. By the end of the week, the baby's condition had stabilized enough for Riley and Dr. Harper to begin planning the next steps. The immediate crisis had passed, and the child was now safe, healthy, and under the care of medical professionals. The story of Max's discovery, guidance, and protection remained fresh in everyone's mind, serving as a reminder of the extraordinary impact that one loyal, intelligent, and compassionate dog could have on the world. The events of that week had transformed the small hospital, the community, and the lives of everyone involved. Max, the retired canine, had become a hero whose actions transcended training and duty, leaving a lasting legacy of courage, loyalty, and life-saving instinct. The baby, once vulnerable and exposed to danger, now had a chance to grow, thrive, and experience life, all because of the bravery of a dog who refused to ignore a faint cry in the rain. Days turned into weeks, and the baby's condition continued to improve under the careful watch of the medical team. The tiny infant, once cold, shivering, and fragile from the storm and dehydration, was now showing signs of strength and resilience. Every small movement, every breath, every heartbeat was a sign of life, a reminder of the extraordinary journey that had brought the baby to safety. Dr. Harper, Riley, and the hospital staff observed the progress with pride and relief. Knowing that the immediate danger had passed, Max, the retired canine who had first discovered the baby in the rain-soaked alley, remained a constant presence. Even as the baby grew stronger, Max stayed close, watching attentively, occasionally nudging the blanket or letting out a soft whine whenever the infant stirred. The bond between the dog and the child was already evident, an instinctive connection formed from the very moment Max had sensed the baby's cries. The dog's protective instincts had never wavered, and even now, weeks later, he remained vigilant and loyal. Riley reflected on the events that had unfolded. He had known Max for years, had trained him, worked alongside him, and shared countless experiences with the canine. But nothing had prepared him for the depth of loyalty, courage, and instinct his dog had displayed that night. Max had discovered a life in danger, guided Riley through the storm, and ensured that the baby received immediate care, a chain of actions that directly saved a life. Riley felt a surge of pride and gratitude, knowing that Max had once again proven the extraordinary capabilities of canines. Even in retirement, the hospital staff continued to monitor the baby's recovery closely. The initial dehydration had fully resolved, and the congenital heart condition, although still requiring attention, was now stable. The medical team began planning for future evaluations and treatments, ensuring that the infant would have every opportunity to grow and thrive. Each small improvement, from tiny movements to stronger breathing patterns, was celebrated as a victory, a testament to the baby's resilience and the life-saving intervention that had brought them to this point. The story of Max and the baby quickly spread beyond the hospital walls. Local news outlets covered the extraordinary events, sharing photographs of Max sitting attentively beside the baby, his eyes filled with calm determination. Social media posts highlighted the courage and intelligence of the retired canine, praising the dog for his life-saving instincts. People from across the town and beyond expressed admiration, gratitude, and wonder at the remarkable sequence of events that had unfolded during the storm. Community members, deeply moved by the story, began visiting the hospital to offer support. Gifts of blankets, toys, and baby supplies were brought in, along with heartfelt letters and messages of encouragement. Many came to see Max, recognizing the dog not only as a hero, but as a symbol of hope, loyalty, and bravery. The K9's actions had inspired countless people, showing that courage could come in unexpected forms and that heroism was not limited to humans alone. Riley, meanwhile, remained a constant presence, watching over both Max and the baby. The bond between him and the dog had always been strong, forged through years of shared experiences and training, but it had deepened even further during the events of that stormy night. Riley often found himself reflecting on how a single act of awareness, a single decision to follow instincts, could have such profound consequences. Max had made that decision instinctively, and it had changed a life forever. As the baby continued to grow stronger, Dr. Harper arranged for a formal medical evaluation to ensure that all potential health concerns were addressed. Specialists examined the infant carefully, confirming that the initial treatment had been successful and that the child would continue to recover with proper care. The tiny fingers that had once curled tightly in fear now grasped gently at blankets and toys, a sign of increasing strength and curiosity about the world around them. Max's role did not go unnoticed by the medical staff. The dog had remained calm, attentive, and protective throughout the entire recovery process. His presence seemed to comfort not only the baby but everyone around him. Nurses and doctors remarked on the unusual bond between the dog and the child, noting how Max's instincts and behavior had played a critical role in ensuring the baby's survival and comfort. The K9 had become a silent guardian, a constant reminder of the power of loyalty and instinct. Riley and Dr. Harper also began to discuss the broader impact of the story. They realized that Max's actions could serve as an example to the community, highlighting the importance of awareness, quick thinking, and the unique abilities of animals. Schools, community centers, and local organizations reached out to share the story, using it to teach lessons about compassion, vigilance, and heroism. Max, once a retired police dog, had now become an inspiration far beyond the small town where he lived. Months passed, and the baby continued to thrive. With the support of the medical team and the community, the child grew stronger every day. Each milestone, taking a first step, grasping a toy, smiling, was a triumph, a reminder of the resilience that had carried the baby through the first critical moments of life. Riley often watched quietly as Max lay near the child, the two forming an unspoken bond that had begun the day the dog had discovered the baby in the storm. One day, the hospital held a small ceremony to recognize Max's extraordinary actions. Dr. Harper, Riley, and several members of the hospital staff gathered to honor the dog, presenting him with a medal of bravery for his life-saving instincts and courage. The event was simple but heartfelt, filled with admiration, gratitude, and emotional speeches about the incredible story. Max sat calmly, ears perked, eyes attentive, seemingly understanding the importance of the moment without needing words. Riley knelt beside Max, stroking his fur gently. "You've done something amazing, boy," he said softly. "You saved a life when no one else could. You've given this baby a chance to grow, to live, and to be happy. You're a hero in every way, and I couldn't be prouder of you." Max responded with a soft, approving bark, as if acknowledging Riley's words and the significance of his actions. The bond between them, already unbreakable, had been strengthened by the events that had unfolded months earlier. The story of Max and the baby continued to inspire people. Local newspapers ran follow-up articles about the child's recovery and the heroism of the retired K9. Social media posts celebrated Max's bravery, and community members shared their own experiences with animals who had displayed extraordinary loyalty and courage. The narrative became a symbol of hope and inspiration, demonstrating that even in ordinary circumstances, acts of awareness and compassion could change lives in extraordinary ways. Riley continued to care for Max, ensuring that the dog remained comfortable and happy in retirement. Max had once faced danger on the streets as a police dog, but now his heroism took a quieter form, watching over the baby he had saved, providing comfort, and inspiring those who knew his story. The K9's instincts, loyalty, and courage had created a ripple effect that extended far beyond the initial discovery in the alley. touching lives throughout the community and beyond. As the baby grew, Riley often shared the story with the child, explaining how Max had found them in the rain, guided him through the storm, and ensured that they received life-saving care. The child, too young to fully understand at first, began to recognize the dog as a protector and friend, forming a bond that would last a lifetime. Max, in turn, continued to remain vigilant, his presence a constant source of comfort and safety. The events that began on that stormy night had transformed the lives of everyone involved. The baby had survived and thrived thanks to the quick thinking and instincts of Riley and Max. Max, once a retired K9, had demonstrated extraordinary courage, loyalty, and intuition, becoming a symbol of hope, inspiration, and heroism. Riley, Dr. Harper, and the medical team continued to care for the child, ensuring that the future was bright and full of possibility. In the end, the story of the retired K9 who found a baby in the rain became more than just a tale of heroism. It became a testament to the extraordinary bond between humans and animals, the power of instinct, and the ways in which courage and loyalty could change lives. Max had not only saved a life, he had inspired a community, strengthened the bonds of family, and created a legacy of hope and bravery that would be remembered for years to come. As Riley watched the baby play safely in the hospital nursery, Max resting beside them, he felt a deep sense of gratitude and fulfillment. The retired K9 had fulfilled his role as a protector and hero in a way that went beyond training, beyond duty, and beyond expectation. Max had discovered a life in peril, acted with intelligence and compassion, and ensured that the child had a future, a life full of love, safety, and opportunity. The story would be told and retold, but for Riley and Max it was simply a reflection of what they had always known. That loyalty, courage, and compassion could save lives, inspire hearts, and create a bond that no storm could ever break. Max had proven that heroism came in many forms, and sometimes it could be found in the quiet determination of a retired K9, running through the rain to change the world, one life at a time.